Welcome to this deep dive.
Welcome to the deep dive.
So today we are opening up a research file that is, well, it's truly transformative. I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
If someone offered you lifetime insurance for your brain, a way to, significantly slow down that biological clock and keep your mind sharp well into your 80s, 90s, what would you pay for it?
Quite a lot, I'd imagine.
Well, the answer, according to one of the largest studies ever done on this, might just be the cost of a language textbook.
That's absolutely right. We are diving into a massive, and I mean massive, population-level study. We're talking over 80,000 people across 27 different European countries.
And for decades, this idea, the link between speaking multiple languages and healthy aging, it was always a bit skeptical, right?
It was. The studies were too small. The ways they measured aging weren't always reliable. But this new data, this gives us the hard quantitative proof we've been waiting for.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the headline number from this study is genuinely shocking.
It really is.
They found that people who speak 2 or more languages were half as likely to show signs of accelerated biological aging, half, compared to those who only speak 1.
That is an enormous protective factor.
Yeah.
The precise stat is an odds ratio of 0.46. Now, to put that into perspective for you, the listener.
Yeah, what does that mean?
It means if you're a monolingual, you face a risk that is statistically 2.11 times greater of your body's clock speeding up.
Wow. So this isn't just about, pushing back dementia by a few years for some people.
No, not at all. This is about fundamentally changing the aging trajectory for pretty much everyone. The research is clear. Multilingualism is a critical, lifelong protective factor.
That's phenomenal. It's like having this invisible helmet on your brain. But before we get into the mental gymnastics that make this work, we have to talk about the breakthrough here.
The methodology.
Exactly. How did they actually measure the speed of aging? Because your chronological age, the candles on your cake, that tells us almost nothing about your brain health.
Right. And that's the study's biggest contribution. They moved past all the subjective stuff and introduced a metric called the Biobehavioral Age Gap, or BAGS for short.
BAGS. Okay, that sounds important. So it's a computer model that calculates a predicted age. How does it do that? What goes into it?
It's an aggregate score. The model calculates your predicted age by looking at a huge range of things, your health indicators, your lifestyle, socioeconomic factors, basically everything that influences how fast you're aging.
So it takes a whole picture of your health, the inputs.
Exactly. And it says, okay, a person with these inputs should biologically be about this old.
Okay, so if my predicted age is higher than my actual chronological age, then I have a positive bag, and that's bad news.
That's accelerated aging. Your biological profile is, frankly, older than the number of years you've been alive.
So you could have 2 people turning 65.
Exactly. And for one of them, the model might say their health profile looks more like a 75-year-old. Yeah. Their bag is plus 10. They are aging faster than they should be.
And on the flip side, if my predicted age is lower than my real age, my bag is negative. That's the goal.
That is absolutely the goal. A negative bag means delayed aging. Your health and your cognitive resilience are better than we'd expect for someone your age.
So that other 65-year-old might get a predicted age of, say, 58.
Right. A negative bag of -7. They're in a much better state.
That makes it really clear. So what were the big factors that the model found, the things that really push that predicted age up or down?
Well, the strongest protective factor, the thing that slows the clock the most, was functional ability. Just how well you can perform daily activities.
Makes sense.
And then you have the usuals, higher education, staying physically active, things like that. All very protective.
And the things that speed it up, the adverse factors.
The usual culprits, again, cardiometabolic diseases, hypertension, heart disease, also sensory impairments. Losing your vision or hearing was a big accelerator.
I saw something fascinating in the data about that, though. Female sex was listed as a predictor for accelerated aging in the EU context. That seems wrong. Women live longer.
It seems counterintuitive, but it shows why these huge studies are so important. It's not saying women are inherently less healthy.
So what is it saying?
It's a statistical reality for this specific group. In Europe, while women do live longer, the data shows they also experience a higher prevalence of chronic age-related conditions in those later years.
So the model sees that higher burden of chronic disease, even in a group that lives longer, and it flags it as an immediate risk factor for an older biobehavioral profile.
Precisely. It's about the quality of life and disease burden, not just longevity. And the fact that the BAGS metric can capture that nuance is what makes us trust its findings on multilingualism.
Which brings us right back to the main event, This study confirms that speaking more than one language is a seriously robust protective factor, and not just for a small group.
No, for the entire healthy older population they studied, from 51 all the way to 90 years old.
And it's not just an on or off switch, right? Monolingual versus multilingual. It's more complicated.
It is. It's what we call dose dependent. The more languages you actively use, the stronger and more cumulative that protective effect becomes over your entire life.
That's so interesting. So it's not just learning one extra language. The research says that speaking 2 or 3 or more additional languages gives you an even bigger shield.
That's exactly the finding.
Correct.
Speaking one extra language, yes, it definitely reduces your risk. But the jump to using 2 or 3 or more additional languages, that's where the effect becomes dramatically significant.
It's like the complexity of managing that bigger inventory gives your brain a better workout.
A much better workout. And this really shines when you look at the oldest people in the study.
Right. What happened there?
Well, for monolinguals, their risk of accelerated aging, as you'd expect, goes up very steeply when they hit that 78 to 90-year-old bracket.
Of course.
But for the people speaking 2 or more languages, their protective effect actually got stronger in those oldest groups.
Wow. So the shield doesn't just hold steady, it actually gets tougher right when you need it most. That's the definition of resilience.
It is. It proves this isn't some short-term boost. Multilingualism is a sustained, lifelong factor that continuously contributes to your brain health.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. What is actually happening in the brain? What's the biological mechanism? Why is knowing 2 languages so much better than 1?
The short answer is a concept called cognitive reserve.
Right, cognitive reserve.
We talk about it as the brain's ability to withstand damage, whether from aging or disease, without you even showing symptoms. It's like a buffer or a backup system that your brain builds up.
So if my brain's normal highway system gets damaged by age, the cognitive reserve just reroutes the traffic instantly, and I don't even notice the detour.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And multilingualism is one of the best ways to build that reserve because it forces your brain into constant mental gymnastics.
Mental gymnastics, I like that.
Think about someone who speaks English and French. Even when they're just speaking English, their French language system is still active in the background. It's not turned off.
So they're always, on some level, wrestling with 2 competing systems.
Constantly. To speak just one language accurately, the multilingual brain has to work harder. It has to inhibit the language it's not using while selecting the one it is. And that constant low-level effort strengthens the brain's executive functions.
We hear that term a lot, executive functions. Break that down for us. What does that mean in real life?
Executive functions are basically the CEO of your mind. They control your attention, your ability to ignore distractions, what we call inhibitory control, and your ability to switch between tasks.
The control center.
The control center. And multilingualism gives that control center a daily workout, strengthening the very parts of the brain that are most vulnerable to age-related decline. It's experience-dependent neuroplasticity in action.
It's reinforcing those neural networks, making them more resilient.
Exactly. That sustained mental effort is the secret sauce for building and maintaining that cognitive reserve.
Okay, now, whenever we see a huge study like this from Europe, you have to ask the tough questions. You have to do a robustness check.
Absolutely.
Could this just be about money or education? Are multilingual people just more likely to be wealthier, better educated, and therefore healthier anyway?
That's the million-dollar question. And the researchers were extremely thorough about this. They adjusted the results for a huge array of macro-level factors they called exposomes.
Exposomes. So what kind of things are we talking about?
Everything. Country-level wealth, so GDP, and individuals' migration status, air quality, even things like gender inequality within that country. They looked at the whole environment, not just the person.
And after controlling for all of that, wealth, education, immigration, did the effect disappear?
Not at all. It remains statistically significant and robust. That's the proof that multilingualism is an independent protective factor.
So it's the language use itself. It's the cognitive workout.
It's the workout. It's not about your background.
That's a huge policy signal. But there is a nuance here we have to address. The researchers mention stressful multilingualism.
A critical subtlety, yes. The study acknowledges that these benefits can be attenuated or weakened a bit in cases where someone learns a language out of extreme economic necessity linked to chronic stress.
So like in a really difficult migration situation.
Exactly. The stress of that situation, the poverty or marginalization, it acts as a disadvantage that can partially counteract the cognitive gains. The benefit is still there, but the stress dulls its protective edge.
So while the brain is getting a workout, the body is under so much pressure that the net health gain is compromised.
Precisely. But even with that caveat, the public health implication is overwhelmingly positive. Multilingualism is, as they say, a low-cost, scalable lever for public health. We don't need expensive drugs for this.
Which brings us to the most practical question for you, the listener. If I'm in my 40s, 50s, 60s, and I'm realizing, hey, I need to protect my brain, is it too late to start?
The answer from the researchers is a resounding no. Absolutely not. Language use is a modifiable lifestyle factor. Your brain is still plastic.
You can still change it.
You can still change it. The experts in this paper strongly encourage people, regardless of age, to actively, and I quote, go out and try to learn a second language or keep that second language active.
So it's not just about when you started, it's about the consistent, demanding use of the language.
Precisely. The maintenance is the workout. And that's really the core of it. We've seen the massive scale of this study, the power of the bags metric, and this clear, dose-dependent, lifelong protective effect.
It really shifts our whole perception of learning a language, doesn't it? From just a cultural skill to a genuine biological shield. That's empowering.
It is. And that brings me to the final provocative thought for you to take away from this. This research proves the existence and the scale of this benefit. But scientists still need to fully pick apart the difference between learning a new language, that intense, focused effort.
The hard part at the beginning.
The hard part. Versus the impact of continuously using and maintaining the languages you already have, which is more of a sustained daily routine.
That's a key distinction.
It is. So if you already know a second language, maybe you learned Spanish in high school 30 years ago, you possess the potential for this cognitive shield. But here's the question for you. Are you letting that potential just gather dust?
Or are you actively using it?
Are you actively engaging it every single week? Because your choice to maintain and use that knowledge, that might be the actual factor that determines how much real cognitive reserve you build over time. The challenge is clear. Keep speaking, keep learning, and keep that brain engine running.
And that's a wrap on this episode of MedDecode. I really appreciate you joining me today. If something we talked about sparked your interest, or if there's a medical term that's been bugging you, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, be a pal and share it with a friend. We'll catch you on the next one.